Morning, everybody. There is lots of you are coming in now via the waiting room. Appreciate you all. I'm Doug James. If you haven't met me, I'm sure some of you have, and you should be seeing Tom Mills as well. I have all of your mics should be muted. I will mute all mics anyway as different people come in if needs be, so that we don't have lots of background noise. Children running around. It's obviously Zooming at home in lockdown at the moment. So I appreciate you all joining us this morning. And as I say, you should be able to see Tom Mills. Tom is unmuted, so Tom will introduce himself. And I'm sure most of you will know Tom hosting Tom's or being the founder, if you like, and it probably just calls you admin actually at the moment, Tom, in the Facebook group, which is always a great title. But Tom has put together the Buy, Refurbish, Refinance Facebook group, which I believe lots of you are within. So that would tell me if you are, that lots of you, I'm just going to keep admitting more people in as they sign up and join this morning. So this says there's nearly 30 of us in here in this Zoom this morning. So I appreciate you committing the time and joining us. So what I shall do is I will ask Tom to introduce himself, but I'm probably going to go back and ask him to do it again in a few minutes, just make sure that we have everybody in here, because as I let you in, so somebody else is just joining us right now, as I let people in through the waiting room, it can take a few seconds for people's internet connection, etc., to fully come in. So we'll start this properly in a couple of minutes at about, say, 4 or 5 minutes past 10 o'clock. And so I shall ask Tom to just introduce himself briefly, chit chat for the moment, almost, if you like, we're filling time while we're waiting for everybody to get into this Zoom with us. So Tom, yeah, introduce yourself if you would, please.
Yeah, so I'm Tom Mills. I can see most of you already know me, but I'll introduce it for the others that don't. I'm the co-founder of Emergence Property. So what we do is we buy mainly BRRs, buy, refurbish, refinance properties for ourselves, and we also help others buy them as well for a completely hands-off service. So start to finish, we help people find them, refurbish them, project manage it. You get the involvement of all of our legal team and brokers. And it's really just educating people as well along the way, just to help people out where we can.
I'll always mute my mic just in case my kids decide to murder each other in the background, and then you'll hear screaming kids. So if you see me about to move my mouth and nothing seems to be coming out, let me know. It's just I've got the mic muted. As I say, I'm going to keep my eye on. There's 32 of us in or joining right now. So Tom, appreciate you've introduced yourself in that way. I'll just, for those of you that don't know me, and there's probably quite a few, I've not actually looked properly as I was letting everybody in. Who knows me already? There's a couple I've seen in here, and Peter Wood has already said hello and good morning in the chat part. But if I frame first, before I introduce myself, I frame how we shall use this morning. And obviously, most importantly, this is your time and opportunity to ask Tom, ask myself questions. The questions obviously want to focus around buy, refurbish, refinance, but just because that's the vehicle that Tom is using, people like myself use within property. What I'm also saying is you can ask questions around anything. You've seen me potentially on Facebook doing a Zoom, a Facebook Live each morning called Start PMA. People have been asking me why I'm so positive, how come I'm so positive, and can I give them some of that positive vibes and energy? So I do that on a morning basis at 8:30. And the reason why I'm talking about that is the vehicle to freedom is one thing, but this is a funny old device, our brains, and we're in lockdown right now, and we have to stay positive. And actually getting ourselves in order and planning and understanding how we can collaborate, we can work with people that are better than us, people like Tom and the services that Tom's business with his business partner Ollie they offer is incredible. And think about it, majority of people in business collaborate, whether you're collaborating and supporting a client and working with a client, or whether you're collaborating with your team, your staff, however way you want to look at internal PAYEs or contractors. We're always working with other people to achieve bigger and better things. So this morning is in particular about that. So just letting somebody else in. So this is your time. I shall ask Tom lots of questions. Tom may end up again, asking me some things. I'll chip in where it's appropriate for me to, and where I feel I can add extra value to any points that you've either asked or Tom is making. So that is going to be the format this morning. I am recording it as long as Zoom delivers all the things that it needs to do. I'm going to have to hand over to Tom in a second, because I just realised my kids have stolen my charging cable, and I'm on red already on my laptop. So Tom, if you would just tell us what BRR is, so buy, refurbish, refinance, tell us the main targets around it, you know, in terms of return on cash employed, you know, dispel one of those myths. I don't know many people getting all their money back out, even in the last year. You know, that isn't always the case, but just again, give us a bit of a reality check without being doom and gloom, if you would. I'll put you on mute, and then I'm going to go and get a charging cable.
Okay, cool. So firstly, I'll explain what buy, refurbish, refinance is. And when we're talking about buy, refurbish, refinance, it can be used in a lot of different property strategies, but we're going to concentrate on single lets today. So it's basically buying a property where you can add value through a refurbishment and then being able to refinance your money back out. So for example, you'd buy a property low, you'd maybe carry out a refurbishment and modernisation of that property. Doesn't need to be a huge amount of work, but generally the more work you do, the more value you can add. And then that property will be uplifted, where you can refinance, get a new mortgage on the uplift, and get that money back out in order for you to redeploy or use for something else. So it's a method of basically leaving less capital into a deal. Now, on a returns basis, a lot of people think that you can use this vehicle to leave no money in the deal. And that is possible, but it's usually a tactic that I've seen to sell education programs rather than what actually happens in reality. We buy at the moment 60 properties per year, and we haven't done one. It also depends on the finance though, because I have seen people achieving it by if they can refinance at a much higher loan to value. So I've seen people, if they can refinance at 85%, they're then being able to get that money back. But we're always looking at a safe kind of level of 75%, which is lower risk. And if you take that safe approach, you generally can't. So on average, you'll probably leave about 10,000 to 15,000 in a deal. If the property's a good property in a good location, attracting the right kind of tenants, and based on that, you would generally get around a 20% return on your capital. But again, it does depend. If you want a higher end area, you can expect less than that, 10%, 15%. But either way, as I'm sure you can appreciate, it's a very good return on your money still.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I think that you picked up on one of the key points, that it's easy for somebody to sell you an education, a course, a program. And of course, you know, I'm sorry, some more people joining us slightly late. I'm a big believer in dispelling the no money down. There is no such thing as no money down, and I will call out, you go and listen to the progressive big boys and girls. I'm not slagging any one company off, because they all do it, but no money down is bullshit, because it's always got to have something, even if it's a lease option and you can do it for a quid. And I've got people that have done many lease options in their lives, and one of my great friends has over 90 properties he owns, and he started it all with multiple lease options deals or option agreements, and I can assure you not one of them was done for £1, put it that way. So the BS that's out there in terms of bullshit is about hooking you in to basically get you to spend money with them. So it becomes one of the greatest sayings I've ever heard is, you don't need any money for property, you just need money for education. And there's the answer for you in that alone. You know, it's got to be one of the greatest sales lines I've ever heard. You do need money. And as you're pointing out, if you try and over leverage something, over gear it rather, then you could be in a very sticky position. Right now, you know, with all the things going on out there with payment holidays and landlords and all these different things. They've been talking about the new 75 as in loan to value is 50, you know, because that means you can weather the storms in a much stronger and robust way. So the reason why, again, I touch on this is you making the point there, Tom, that you're leaving 10 to 15,000 pounds in. And you could, you know, again, you could do that. If I just touch on, you know, that type of money being left in, that could be a friend, that could be a family. You could be doing a service for somebody, helping them. And so you can collaborate, as I touched on earlier. This is about working together. You know, I use an example. You know, my mum decides, or my sister, let's say, my mum's 81, she probably wouldn't be right for this because she's already retired and she's actually in a good financial position. But if she wasn't, it still might be right for an 81-year-old. She could use her money, lend it to me, couldn't she? And I use it with Tom, and then I pay some fees for services. And let's say I'm leaving 10 to 15,000 pounds in a deal. My mum might not even want her money back because it could be a part of an inheritance plan. You know, there could be that she does want her money back and she only wants a few percentage interest points on her money, but I keep it in the deal for, I don't know, 5 years, for 3 years. You know, it is about how you can obviously work with other people. And with that in mind, therefore, you need to have a belief system, and that's your mindset. So let me ask you, Tom, taking back a step from specifically buy, refurbish, refinance, and go into that mindset. Tell us and link it, if you would, to your personal story, which I know from you were, you know, you were working, you were very, you know, believing in yourself. You're a young man now. Tell us how old you are. And I mean that, you know, I'm 48, so at the other end of the age spectrum. But young, loads of energy, you know, lots of passion, but some people were squashing you and even, you know, sort of picking on you, if I believe, you know, they're bullying you mentally, physically. I don't mean punching you, bullying in that way. They may have been, I don't know. But what I'm trying to get at is you know, really about the mindset from growing big and strong, you know, early to being sort of deflated to then basically searching for that new vehicle to freedom and then basically putting this business into place that you have. So give us the bit here I'm looking for is the mindset in particular, because we're in a scary lockdown situation if you watch the news. But if you look out of my window, it looks like the same old day going by with the sun going up and coming down. And there's a lot of good people out there wanting to help each other get to their dreams at the moment. So give us your mindset, plug that into a little bit of your story, if you would.
Yeah, of course. So I'm actually 24, which may seem very young, but I've always been one to kind of stand against people pushing young people down, really, because I think it's looked at as a lack of experience, which is actually irrelevant because I've got coming up to now, how much is it? 8 years of experience in property, not all directly investing, but you know, there's lots of 50-year-olds that haven't got that much experience. Also, quite a funny point, I've just realised you're the same age as my dad, Doug. Thank you.
Is your dad as bald as me?
No, as you can see from my hair, he's certainly not.
Well,
get it from him.
I've got a picture somewhere down here of my dad. He wasn't bald. I don't know what happened. None of you, what's the old classic saying? Grass doesn't grow on busy lanes. You need to get working a little bit smarter and harder.
Yes. So I left school at 15, and I did have qualifications, but it was never the right kind of environment for me, really. I found it quite difficult to learn in those kind of places, and luckily I kind of pushed myself out there, and I thought, what am I going to do? And I actually came across a really good chap who lives local to me, who owns the biggest chain of mortgage brokers in Suffolk, and I begged him all summer to work for him, and eventually he said, yes, look, you can come and work for me, you can do the filing, you can go down the cellar, you can make me tea. I even washed his car one day. So it shows you the stuff you've got to do. But by the end of the summer, he'd offered me an apprenticeship. So that's what I went and did. I finished it early. I did a 2-year apprenticeship in 6 months. And then I thought, what am I going to do next? So I said, well, where do we go with this? And he said, well, why don't you start training to be a mortgage broker? However, I had to be 18 to become a mortgage broker. So what I actually did was learn everything I needed to in my exams, ready to sit them on my 18th birthday, which I did, and I passed, and then I was the youngest mortgage broker in the UK at that point. Before 20, I went on to win quite a few awards. So for two years running, I was I won the Best Young Broker Award. Can't remember which mortgage one it was that gave it. I think it's Mortgage Strategy that gave that award, the award ceremony. So I did that, and then it all came crumbling down quite quickly, really, from there. So the company grew quite a lot. I came in to actually manage a new company of theirs, an online-based one, and both of the directors' sons were also brought in, but they were brought in under me. Now, they were both 5 years older than me, didn't like it because they were the director's sons, so they started basically getting as much dirt on me as possible and making things up to get me out. So, long and short of it, got political. I ended out of there, and because it's quite a small industry, like a lot of places, I couldn't really get back in. So I found myself at kind of, I think I was 21, 22, just kind of back at the beginning. So I thought, right, what am I going to do now? I know property, I know it works really well. I've learned a lot about this, and I know that's the place to be. I enjoy it. I've got a good finance background. I thought, right, let's go into there. Luckily, I had made a bit of money, so I went and focused on buying. But the problem I had was the area I lived. So I don't know if many of you know Suffolk, and there's a couple of people quite local, but it's a difficult area because there isn't that much stock. And even though there are the deals here, they're quite hard to find. So what I actually do is I went out to work with someone who might be able to do the other side of this better than me. And also, I don't have the skills in building and that type of thing. So I had most of the skills, but not that side. So I teamed up with a guy called Ollie that I met through networking. And then we formed this alliance together where we went out to build our own portfolio using this method of buy, refurbishing, refinance. And then from there, it's just really developed quite well. People loved what we were doing. We were getting more deals than we could buy. So we formed Emergence Property, which is also helping other people to do the same thing. It just basically piggybacks off what we're doing. So when we can't buy, they go to our clients. They're the same deals. They're the same returns. It's exactly the same things we're buying, which I think makes it quite nice and ethical. Because if we can buy them, then why wouldn't we offer them to our clients? So that's happened, gone really well. It's now been running 18 months. I'm full-time in property. Yeah, it's been a really exciting journey.
Just unmute my mic. Great. Just realised, two more people wishing to come in, which I'm just doing a led into this. I'm actually going to attempt to go live with this back into the BRR Facebook group as well, Tom. Just my thinking straight away is that what we're sharing here and what we're able to answer, and as I say, people please do ask questions. Do ask questions about anything around BRR. If you're in it already, where are you seeing the positives? Where are you seeing the challenges? How are you collaborating with people? If you're not in it, and you want to get into it, ask the reasons why. Why do people love single lets more than? And it's the biggest. If you look at home ownership, home renters. I.e. people renting a property that they live in as a home. Single lets is by far the biggest market, compared to serviced accommodation, HMOs, etc. So any of these questions, please ask. But what I shall do is attempt at the same time as you're speaking, Tom, to put this back into the Facebook group as a live going into there. So I'll share the live button in a moment. So Tom, I know again, and appreciate and respect, and I agree with you about the age thing. I believe in young entrepreneurs massively, and I support young entrepreneurs. Same as yourself. Actually, I'll do my story in a bit later because I want to keep focused on where we're going at the moment. But similarly to yourself, there's a chip on our shoulder, and I think it's more about what we have instilled in here about the young bit and about people feeling that you're too young to basically take control of your life and buy, build a business or buy, refurbish, refinance. 8 years, you've got actually 24 years of living on the planet, which is actually quite a length of time. It's about a quarter if of your life, quite possibly. It might be scarily a little bit less or a little bit more. It's working on the basis of a quarter of your life on the planet. And the learning curve, the education and learning curve in that quarter of your life is steeper than any other time in your life. So out of that, I agree with you. Young entrepreneurs have got the energy, mindset. I mean, physically young, but also the young mindset. You know, I see Peter Wood looking at his phone, not paying attention right now. There I am, call him out. So, no, but in all joking apart, you know, Peter, I've only spoken to what, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. By all means, chip in, Peter, if you want, and unmute your mic. But why I'm making this point is what I've learned about Peter is he's got a young mindset. You know, the mindset shift that he's got in his brain, but where he wants to go and what he wants to do and what he wants to achieve and the legacy that he wants is more important than what's on the outside. I mean, I could look at Tom and go, wow, I'd rather hang around with Tom. He's fit, young and healthy. And I could look at Peter and go, wow, I don't really want to hang around with Peter because he looks old and he looks as a mirror of me. Slightly fit, but not as fit as Tom. And I'm only joking because I'm trying to stereotype and judge. And I don't think we should judge anybody for anything. You know, the last thing you should do in life is if you judge somebody, you won't find the money in the room if you're looking for money, or the people that have got the best deals and the people who can help you in the best way possible. So I'm just going to let the next person in, 37.
Yeah, Doug, yeah, I'm not actually 7 years older than you, really. I'm actually the same age as Tom, but I had a really tough paper round. It was difficult.
Blaming the paper round now as well for his action.
Yeah,
Any excuse is a good excuse, as they say.
But yeah, my mindset certainly in the last year, and particularly in the last few months, and definitely in lockdown, has really changed. And I've been concentrating on that, making sure I'm positive. And indeed, that was what I was messaging on my phone. Somebody messaged me and said, what's all this about positivity and what do I do and whatever else? So yeah, that's what I was picking up. So yeah, I'm setting myself daily goals, daily actions, and making sure that I'm doing things. I'm going on Doug's Zoom every morning because he gives me a kick, and it's nice to see the blue sky and the seaside outside the back of his house. But it leaves you in a positive way, and therefore, but yeah, my whole mindset's much better now than it was 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. Really positive. I'm really going forwards, and I'm taking action so that when we come out of lockdown, I'm in a much better place.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that, and I really do. I mean, there's never, you know, the greatest bit of advice is it's never too late. You know, it's never too late to start. It's never too late to tip some good stuff into your brain. It's never too late to basically take action. Remember, today is one day. And what I always say is if you fail, you know, in your own mind, if you fail to do some things that you talk about to do in your plan today, yeah, tomorrow's a brand new day. Don't take anything negative into tomorrow from today. I talk about a DMO, daily method of operation, having 3 things that you can do today that will affect your business today, or your mind today, your plan today, your why today. You know, but as long as you're focused and you take 1 or 2 of those, 3 of those actions. But imagine if I don't do any of those today. Imagine, you know, if I don't do any of those actions, which I know are little steps, which will build momentum, which will get me to my goal and my future. If I don't do that, yeah, do I take that negativity into tomorrow? Do I even try and do twice as much tomorrow? Do I try and do all the things I didn't do today tomorrow? That's what most people do. That's what a job, JOB, just over broke. That's what a job mostly does for you. And the reason why I say that is because the job is there with setting you tasks to do by a certain time, within a certain time frame. So the point is, when you work for yourself or when you're trying to give yourself the best start in life, yeah, you really want to understand, okay, what it is you're trying to achieve, you know, where you're trying to get to, the why, and then plug that back in with a strategy like BRR, buy, refurbish, refinance. You know, somebody's just written here, and I will come back to, I will read it in a moment, about basically a new build property at 80,000, blah, blah, blah. So I will have a look at it, and I'm sure if you know, Tom will be reading as well if you can at the same time. But what I'm making the point about is once you understand the model, okay, once you understand the financial engineering of the model, Then you obviously need to understand what it is that you have strengths in and what areas you have weaknesses in. These are comparable in any business that you're in. Okay, I use the 4 M's, a thing called the 4 M's. Me, my postcard, my future, my why, where am I getting to? Money, metrics, measurement, which is the money, which is in every single business. It's in your own household income, you know, etc. So money. Okay, so what money do you need to get to your goal? What money do you need to get your first deal? Okay, so money is about metric and measurement. If you can't measure it, you can't fix it. Then you look at management. So, you know, managing external contractors or internal people. So collaborating with Tom, for instance, and basically how do I manage him so that he delivers me back my growth strategy to deliver me my assets, delivering me my goals. Okay, then you have markets, sales and marketing. So management, markets, sales and marketing. Markets, well, we need to know where to buy. We need to know what to buy and then where we want to buy these 3-bed single let houses. And we put those from the markets against the metrics. Okay, so with the 4 M's, you can put that into any business and into your own private life. Let's just then say that we now, and this is linked from mindset to the buy, refurbish, refinance. Let's, I'm going to go back and ask Tom some more questions. So with that in mind, Tom, tell us your own personal goal. Tell us your own personal why. Tell us, you know, what you're trying to achieve and why you're trying to achieve it. And the reason why I'm picking on Tom is A, obviously he's put the Facebook group together. B, I'm working with Tom on some mentoring and helping Tom and Ollie really focus. And believe you me, they're 2 of the people that I've come across that have made the most amount of actions and the most amount of focused delivery. Talk about putting traction, putting rubber to the road and not just spinning the wheel. You know, these guys and Tom and Ollie in Emergence are incredible. You know, if you want to hang around, and I'm sure some of you are, definitely hang around with them. You know, a lot of people talk the talk and most people don't walk the walk, and they'll quit and they'll give up on their own why. But these guys are absolutely, even, you know, I'm quite happy to go into when we're in board meetings in a virtual one, you know, we're not getting the traction, you know, we're getting confused or whatever, you know, but rather than throwing toys out, you know, this is about a time to regroup and focus. So we absolutely are able to understand, and it's because we're wanting to get to goals and the why and the objective. So Tom, would you tell us, again, would you tell us where you personally, your and Ollie, vision, values, mission, and also financial goals in your own business that you, Emergence, are looking to do, and therefore why, again, you got into BRR and you didn't get into land developments or something else at this moment in time?
Yeah. So both me and Ollie have quite common goals, which I think is quite a big thing actually, and that's probably a good start of going into any kind of joint venture with anyone really. You know, you can be different people with different skills, but you need to be working towards the same thing. So for us, it's mainly down to financial security really, and we want to build a legacy and have a pot there so that we don't have to rely on going out every day and making money, because otherwise you're just in that rat race and you're chasing your tail. So we thought the best, most steady way of doing that is surely through good quality single lets targeted at working families in decent areas that are going to earn you a little, not as much as other property strategies, but earn you a reasonable amount each month that's as most hands off as possible. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're going towards. And then it means that we can kind of concentrate on other things that are important to us. So a big thing for me, and hopefully this comes across, but I love helping other people. So that's one. Quite a few different charity things I do that I'd like to concentrate on as well. But for us, it's all being able to give you that control in order to go out and do the things that you really want to do in life. Oh, you're muted.
Now it does pop up and put a whole line across your thing that says, don't be stupid talking at the thing with your mic off. I'm just also looking at some of these questions. So if I could just rattle through and then come back and continue where we were. Obviously, a lot of people just say good morning. And then Gary's saying to the team, are you counting the 10K left in on average, including all your fees? So I can answer that. You can answer it as well. When I look at these, I always count everything left in. You know, if I'm paying somebody for a service, if I'm paying somebody, well, you know, everything's a service around it, unless you're talking about just the physical bricks and mortar that you end up with. Solicitors, you know, surveyors, whatever these people are, you know, emergents, if you're paying emergents to deliver you a product and service, yes, it's 10K after. Now, the point really, again, if I take it to a more valuable for me, return on cash employed. Okay, so return on cash employed, Roche. And with that, what we're talking about is you might be leaving in 10,000, you might be leaving in 20. I've left 100,000 in. I've left 180,000 in properties. I've actually got a deal that I've converted. Somebody was talking about some other things. You know, there's $250,000 in that. So, you know, I'm never fearful about what it costs or what I leave in. It's about the engineering. And if that delivers you, you know, 10%, you know, if it delivers you even 5, 6, 7% in the southeast, and a lot of people will be telling you that's codswallop. But I can assure you, I've got properties in London delivering me with return on the equity left in. Okay, so no real money left in because the price rises, refinanced over, you know, over 20 years on one of my properties. But the point I'm making is the money that's in that property has got to deliver you a return. Well, it does, but some of the properties I've still got deliver me less than 1% on that equity. But if it's still dropping £1,500 into your bank account or £1,000 into your bank account that's never had a void in 10 or 20 years, you know, so again, look back at buy, refurbish, refinance as single lets. Look at the areas that you're buying them within, and don't just go for the greed. The greed is basically what will make you tank in a market like this. Greed is what everybody goes for because they don't have enough cash flow at the start of it. But actually, you know, again, come back, Tom, being 24, he has got no need to race to his goal, you know, to try and be there in 1 year, 1 week, 5 years. You know, I can assure you, Tom will be a multi-millionaire. And even if that isn't money in the bank, well, because what's the use of that? Well, I can assure you, cash in the bank is very, very valuable today, and also enables you to move quicker and buy more. So a lot of people I know are actually building cash reserves right now, borrowing off of people, not maybe buying this week. You know, it's not as easy to buy this week as it was last week. But I still sold a property in principle last week where we got 2 new build barns, and we had one of those go under offer at full asking price last week. The point I'm making here is, okay, is the money, go back into the 4 M's under the metric, the money 10K, okay, it could be everything to you. It could be more than everything to you, okay, but it's actually what return are you getting on that money? What capital growth are you getting? What cash flow are you getting? Do you need the cash flow or do you need the capital? My whole single let portfolio was a capital growth portfolio. I didn't want cash flow. I had a successful business. I didn't want more money coming in. I wanted to build a legacy. When I started it, it was to get me out if I could at 55. It got me out at 42. It probably could have got me out a bit younger than that, okay? You know, it didn't take me that many years, but by many people who would go on the courses, and as I'm only slating off the BS, the bullshit out there, not the course providers, because I know that lots of, you know, some of my greatest business partners and friends have spent, you know, over 70, 100,000 pounds with Progressive, with PIN, etc., etc. I didn't use those. I went to Cranfield Business School and paid my money to do a business program there. So it's investing in ourselves. But what I'm talking about here is, if you just take the 10 grand left in, what is the return that you are looking for? Return on cash employed, return on capital, return on your time, return on your intellectual property, because you modeled it and then you can use it again and again. So if you've modeled it, return on it, intellectual property. Maybe you can help other people like Tom's doing. Maybe you can help family and friends. Maybe you can actually help a wider community. So, you know, you can build a portfolio with multiple people. You've got to get your joint venture, your contracts correct, and understand that you're all aligned like Tom talked about. So yes, taking the 10K just as a vehicle to talk about what are you in it for and why are you in it. And it has to absolutely financially deliver and stack up. That's for sure. Okay, Tom, just picking up while I go and find some more down here, which are some really good. You looked 11. Something Mark says, and I had no idea that you were 11 years old when you got me my first mortgage, Tom. Obviously, a little funny face or whatever there. You know, my point would be, I know people in the sector that have been in the industry and were 11 years old. They were doing amazing stuff. You come across Dorian Payne, he's 23 right now, and see the pipeline of properties and what he's flipped, refurbed, rebuilt. Family have over 140 properties. So I know he's only taking the mickey there, but I would imagine that this guy called Tom, if he wasn't really getting you a mortgage at the age of 11, he was sitting there at that point in life still dreaming about bigger and better things than he was, obviously achieving probably at that moment in time. So I just wanted to, to pick on that little bit of fun there, because it's about the dream, isn't it? So Tom, with that in mind, again, for all of these people who don't understand what buy, refurbish, refinance is, and I've just touched on some of the returns that we're talking about, if I came to you and I said to you, I don't need anything back in any way, shape or form for 5 years, what could I achieve? And I've got £100,000. What, I mean, again, I'm not asking you to say forecast and suddenly, tell me that you're going to make me this bottom line dot of money. I'm talking about how you could, what would be your response and how would you help somebody plan? How would you help? Because there's a lot of people I know at 45 who want to retire at 55. And a lot of people at 50, my friends, I'm 48, they're all going 50 at the moment, and they want to retire at 55. So that's a long period of time by many people in here if we're just trying to build for ourselves, but thinking about how we could help other people, therefore it could enable us to raise money or collaborate with them. So what would be some of your advice around people that could help other people in effect? Therefore me, I'm coming to you as a client and I've got £100,000 and I want to be able to do as much as I can in that 5-year period.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something we're doing quite a lot for people at the moment, actually, which is a plan. It's reverse engineering it. So people coming saying, I've got this amount of money, I want to get to this goal, which is usually financial freedom, pension, something along those kind of lines, and then a time scale to do it in. So with 100K, I mean, the beauty of buy, refurbish, refinance is leveraging that further. So we all know the buy to let model of buying 75% mortgage. So effectively, instead of buying one property for 100K, you can buy 4 properties for 100K. Well, BRR is leveraging that even further. So if you're leaving in 10K, for example, you could effectively buy 10. There are some little kind of things in there that don't allow it to quite be as straight as that, because obviously you need the upfront finance in order to get there. So if you've got 100K, it won't be 10 properties because you need a bit more to buy the next one, if you understand what I'm saying. But essentially, yes, that's a way of leveraging it further. And yeah, we would help you write a plan for that. If anyone wants that, I'm more than happy to help.
This is the plan that I went on. And my plan wasn't actually to get 10, if you like. It was actually to get less, but make much more, for me, much more capital growth. So that, I was in London at that point in time and the market was booming, then it crashed and then it boomed again through, my first one I bought in 1999, November the 5th. But so been through a couple of mid-market wobbles and recessions, and owned businesses in those times. I've done a Zoom earlier a few weeks ago with some really super smart people on what happened and what we can learn from those through to basically what might be happening now. And you've got to remember, we're in a very, very different position. The economy in the world was actually on fire. We were coming out of the mid-market wobble in January and February. And I wouldn't believe half of the predictions around. That's not to say that the GDP hasn't dropped off a cliff, because it has. A third of the economy is on hold. But I believe somebody described it really, again, positively, like a Coke bottle that's slightly fizzed up, and you take the lid off and it's going to explode. Believe you me, I think we're going to explode coming out of this. But it's exploding by what? So for me, it was very much about, a parking money, getting cash flow, yes, to make sure it was plenty enough, saving that up. But it was about the capital growth, then refinance, take a big lump out of it and go again. And so, wasn't about having, 20 or 100 properties. Think about it again. What lifestyle do you want at the end? I'm older than quite a lot of you probably in these Zooms at the moment. And for me, I want a leveraged, easy lifestyle. You know, I want money that comes in. I want more trophy properties, as people call them. What a word. You know, they're just properties that I would like to live in. And therefore, if they were good enough for me to live in, they've got to be good enough for clients in tenants to live in. You know, build homes, not units. I know we use this word deals, but deals and units are how we mathematically just look at them in an Excel spreadsheet. I know I'm teaching you to suck eggs here by saying it, but we are building homes for people to live in. Okay, so for me in particular, it wasn't necessarily about getting 10. It's understanding, like you said, reverse engineer. If I want £5,000 cash flow per month, yeah, when I retire, if I want £5,000 cash flow, you know, Tom can go, well, I can get you 10, but understand who the person is you're talking to, the investor, the relationship, who they are, why they're saying what they're saying, where they're trying to get to. And if that person wants X amount, understand what that 10,000, if we go back and use that as an analogy, you know, that 10,000 might be left in. It might actually be that they're happy to leave 20 or 30 or 40 in, okay? Because actually that brings it down to 50% return. Actually, the 10 can get you there in the first year, the first 2 years, right? But I only want 4 each year because I want it to be much safer. And I'm happy to go, you know, let's say the tortoise and the hare approach, okay? So really this is understanding the person that you're working with or talking to and who they are and what they want. And understand that quite often what they think they want isn't actually what they want. So you're going to keep asking the questions and digging deeper and deeper. When Tom, Ollie and myself are talking about and myself working with and helping those guys, you know, that are incredible at business, we have to not lose sight of the key goal. You know, what return on cash employed? Okay, Ollie, Tom, where do you want to be? And what safety, what security do you want in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? What's the goals we're going for? Because we've looked at numbers in an Excel spreadsheet, you know, modeling and engineering, Tom and myself. And believe you me, you can achieve a huge amount, but actually, where's the risk and where's the reward? And, you know, we can all get greedy. I want 20,000, I want 40,000 pounds cash flow a month. Okay, but really, do you want that much money, or do you want, you know, to go on holiday with the kids? Do you want to pay down the mortgage so you've got security? You know, maybe not pay it off, but pay it to a level where it's comfortable, the thing that the one that you're living in your home. You know, do you want to turn it from a liability to an asset? Do you want to basically, you know, need to buy a new car, want to buy a new car? You know, do you want to basically help your family and your friends? You know, is it all about you, or is it about, for me, I've got friends that have got pensions. I really want to help them retire. So is it about me? Is it about Tom? Is it about basically, so when I work with people, I always want to know exactly what it is that makes them tick so that I can help them. Okay, next question in here was, you scroll back up. How do you ensure the end valuation, Tom?
Well, the quick answer for that is that you can't. You can't ensure it. The best you can do is a well-educated estimate, I would say. And there isn't an exact science to it. I think you kind of build up experience through doing it. The lucky thing I had is, being my mortgage broker background, I could look at things as how a lender would look at it. I could see kind of how they would usually look at it. And to give some quick tips, generally what they're looking for is 3 sold comparables, which need to be comparables. So they need to be same type of property at a similar size, within a quarter mile, and sold in the last 6 months. Now, a lot of people will generally, when they're buying a property, this is quite a common mistake, is they'll go on to sold comparables and they'll get everything there because that's the best data they can get. However, you've got to think that you're probably not going to be refinancing this until 6 months in the future. So what you actually need to do is you need to look at what's on the market. If it's already sold STC, subject to contract, brilliant, because that gives a good indication of what the comparables will be at the time when you actually come to refinance. So there isn't an exact science because you don't actually know how it's going to look when you get to that point, but you can start to paint a picture and get a good idea. But the best way of doing it, I think, in my opinion, is building up that knowledge over time. Once you know an area and you've bought on that street and you've had refinances on that street, it's then very easy to start making a map in order to work these things out, really. I hope that helps.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks. Thanks. Who is Ollie? Is the easy one. Who's this Ollie? Mark Evans asks. Who is Ollie? Good question. What we were going to jokingly say to Ollie, because he doesn't like, he introvert and likes to just keep his head down and get on with his doing. He's the ops director, is the way I would look at it, for Ollie and Tom's business. So I'll let Tom come back and really answer who he is. But we're joking apart. He may tune into this and listen, so we don't want to catch him out. So I'll whisper it. What we were going to do, and we might do on the next one, is pretend that we're having an internal Zoom meeting between Tom, myself, and Ollie. Plug it into you guys, and then let you all in, so he's actually in the box. Look at Tom, you know, and then we'll plug it into Facebook Live. So we oust him. But in all seriousness, who is Ollie?
So Ollie is my business partner. He runs the nitty-gritty side, as he would call it. But he's basically our project manager. He looks after the refurbs, he looks after the on-the-ground team. He's based in the Northeast and has been there a long time. People often joke that he's the guy that does the work and I'm the guy that does the social media. I think I can see David on here. He said that many times. So yeah, but that's who Ollie is.
Okay, I'll just make it, there's always somebody who's got to look in to the business and look after operations, go under the 4 M's of management. There's always somebody who's got to look out and bring in, you know, sales and marketing, bring in the, you know, clients, relationships, investor relationships. So technically, one looking out, one looking in. And what they and how they had set themselves up when I got introduced to Ollie and Tom was already incredible. But as I say, on a personal level, the bit about focusing on your strengths, we talked about, and I use Wealth Dynamics by Roger Hamilton. Again, I can talk to you about that. We can do more of these and just keep sharing, you know, how you can understand your strengths. Around the community that I help out and work within and the events I run, are really focused on understanding your key strengths so that you can collaborate, so you can work with people that are better than you. Oh, somebody else wanting to come in, just admit them in. Okay, so we always like somebody who turns up 10 minutes before the end. So he's a winner, whoever that was. Morning. Right, let's get into another couple of good questions here. Okay, I'm going to come back to Peter where you asked about the market later. Let's deal with some of these. I've recently been offered a new build apartment of 80k, paying in cash. I can see David Walker in here. Was that David offering you one of his? Okay, is he going to smile? They're not paying attention, wasn't he? And the loan to value. Okay, so if you want me to read the full question out, I will. Again, tap in here and tell me. But what Paul is saying is he's been offered an apartment, what he believes is £20,000 below market value. The unfortunate thing right now is everything is on hold. Okay, my brother-in-law is a surveyor. He served Home Counties valuation surveyor. So yesterday's true valuation could be tomorrow's bargain. It could be that yesterday's valuation is, you know, a percentage above what it will end up being in 3 weeks' time. All we know is the market is almost closed at this moment just because of coronavirus. And that means that people aren't working. Land registry, you know, what is it? You know, I've got 2 refinances. I mean, just with Barclays, I've had the properties for over 10 years. I've been with Barclays or Woolwich for most of that time with them. And I'm switching to a tracker rate, which is going to put 1,400 quid more into my bank account per month on the rental on income versus the mortgage on them. So believe you me, there's some deals to be had and bargains. I'll just tell you, in 2009, when we hit the same sort of 0.25 interest rate, I was on a discounted tracker on 2 properties. And believe you me, they made me 40,000. The one I lived in, I didn't have a mortgage to pay. And the other one I was renting out at the time that was paying my original mortgage was now coming in and being saved up so I could buy another one. Okay, so the answer is, realistically, the answer is I wouldn't know and never got a crystal ball. However, £20,000, which is 20% below market value. If lots have sold and at that true £100,000, believe my forecast would be that that's probably not a bad price. Whether it stacks and whether you want to, you know, the money that you still got to put in, We're talking here about basically, will you be able to get mortgages on it? The easiest thing to do is ask your broker. And you know, if you can't get mortgages on it, think about other people won't be able to easily get mortgages on it. And then you want to go back and find out how much pain. Remember, you're doing a service and solution, you know, for somebody. How much pain is that person in, and how much therefore distress? And it might be that you get it for 75. It might be that you get it for 70. And therefore, where can you get that money from? And if you're going to believe wholeheartedly in your evaluation and due diligence, you might be able to borrow it off of somebody else, because there's a lot of money sitting around waiting to be made, you know, available. You know, I know that, again, the Zoom I was on and was doing yesterday, which I work around SAS pensions heavily. And I mean, I ran a ski trip. David, you really should have. David Walker. Well, you hurt yourself, didn't you, David? Unmute your mic and tell us what you did. Meant to be really good at skiing as well, aren't you, mate?
2 hours in to my first week skiing for 4 years, dislocated my shoulder. So that was the summary. How
did you do it? Go on, tell us, and tell us who you are, David, quickly as well.
I'm David Walker. So I do various things in property. I've got a background in construction. I work with Tom on some bits and pieces up in Gateshead, but main focus is development at the moment. And the way I hurt my shoulder is I was off-piste and hit a rock, and the rock won. So that was it.
And your first, how long in your first 10 minutes, you say, or first few hours?
2 hours, 2 hours, yeah. I got 2 hours skiing in, first time for 4 years because of kids, and yeah, managed to do that. And it was actually on the Progressive ski network.
Is that the one your dad runs?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't go on that one. I've heard it's not very good for safety. Rocks under the snow, bad for shoulders.
Yeah, it's definitely bad for shoulders. Yeah.
In stock, you know, the reason why I was making the reference is I run, as you know, David, I run a property ski network, and I now focus very heavily on the SAS pension people and stuff. And the reason why I said it is more the networking that was around it. Thankfully, we've only had one injury by a very experienced, like David, skier. It was actually a boarder, and that was at the very end of last season. A good friend of mine broke his wrist on piste, just took out a little board. But otherwise, we've had over 300 people go. But the point I was going to make was about this bit of networking, connecting, understanding. There was over 30 million, and I'm talking about borrowing money. There's over 30 million pension and money on that, not including Mark Stokes and guys of over 110, 119 million of GDV commercial conversions secured and in their pipeline or being developed out at the moment. Okay, so you think if you want to borrow £70,000 because you couldn't and you think it's a real deal, then I'm sure if you've built relationships, I'm not saying that, you know, you can go into a Zoom community and somebody will lend you 80 grand by the end of it at all. I don't think that's reality. But what I am saying is that I think you can build decent relationships with people over time. I mean, I've known David for what, probably 3 years or something like that, you know, some length of time. So, you know, building those relationships is, in my view, is really key. So yeah, is that one a good deal? Tom, do you want to say anything from your perspective?
Yeah, there's just a few points on that one I wanted to make. I mean, the first thing that I always say to people is you can't ask if something's a good deal because it's so specific to you and what you want to achieve. So it might be a good deal for you, but it's not for someone else. So that's the very first thing you need to ask yourself. The second thing, it's a new build apartment. So those other ones that have sold, generally new builds hold a higher premium when the market's good. So 80k might not be as good a deal as it looks. The third thing I'd say is if it's new build, you're not adding any value. So when you come to refinance, it is going to be harder to show that uplift. Not impossible, but it will be harder. Oh, muted, Doug.
I've been there. I bought basically a returned to exactly the same proposition in Birmingham, double the price I paid for it, and it was definitely about a 10% below market value at the time. The market wasn't anything like it is at the moment, and I put it in the portfolio just because I thought where it was geography-wise, in the city-wise, I've never had a void on it. I bought it 4 years ago, maybe now 3.5, 4 years ago. I just plopped it in the bottom drawer as a beautiful little property, you know, And yeah, it's technically got no. It has got some money of mine in it, but technically it doesn't owe me anything of the amount of value the property is, but also the rental income. Again, it's not the most glamorous property in the world, but it's a lovely, lovely deal, and it sits in my portfolio. And it's for me, it's what I class as a legacy purchase. It was just, you know, perfectly formed and right to do. But some people I know just buy off plan. You know, they still just buy off plan. They buy off plan through investment clubs, etc. But I know another good friend has a business. So yeah, it's about, is it right for you? 100%. Next question down here. Well, somebody says, Josh was saying, we brightened up his day, her day. Josh, sorry. So his day, when he's looking at these, £14,000, feeling that that was historically was too much. They should only maybe leaving in a total of 5 to 10. I think you've just answered it there again. It's deal by deal. It's not about the money. It's about the returns that you're looking for. When I say that again, return on an easy life. You know, I've funded developments that are meant to be making 100% return on cash employed. You know, I mean, talking 200, £300,000 back, and then they just sometimes don't do it. You know, there's all number of reasons why they will do it and don't do it. Again, can I bring in David if I may again, just for a moment, picking on you, yeah. David. Construction, you've been around it. Tell us the one just very quickly. You might not want to name the company, but the one about when the person up the ladder in that very expensive building. And can you not know who I am? Just tell us that one, because that makes me chuckle every time.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it would translate into Zoom, and I don't mind naming, but it was the Candy Brothers, if you've heard of them. So I was a construction manager on at the time it was the most expensive real estate in Europe, and I was escorting a group of, I suppose, VIPs with Christian Candy, and we had a lagger up a ladder. So I don't know if you're not in construction, a lagger is someone that lags pipe work with insulation for a living. So they're sort of second only to scaffolders on the food chain. And he took issue with the fact that Christian Candy was asking him to move out of the way, and just said to him, "I'll be 2 seconds, mate, you can wait, and I'll get out your way and you can sort of come through as you wish." And Christian Candy sort of turned around to him. He was a little bit embarrassed by the situation. He puffed up his chest and he said, "Do you know who I am?" So then the lagger popped his head out of the ceiling and turned around to all his mates and he said, "Here, lads, there's some fucker here doesn't know who he is." And that was a story I told Doug about 3 years ago, so it's obviously stuck with him.
It always makes me chuckle where egos get bigger than. So I think I haven't used that one yet, but I will definitely be using that when somebody doesn't know who they are. I'll definitely steal that. But what I want to ask you was really about this bit again, numbers, and whether it's a good deal or not. But you know, overspends, unforeseens, doesn't matter whether they're single houses through to blocks of flats, big blocks, little blocks, whatever they are. Land developments of housing estates. Going back into your original career before your focus. I mean, obviously, always been in property construction. You know, how difficult, bearing in mind you're working around sites and numbers, how difficult is it to keep the unforeseens or to keep everything on track so the unforeseens don't become too much of a nightmare and therefore prices run away with us?
Well, the unforeseens are extremely difficult by the very nature that they're unforeseen. Different people have got different views on a level of contingency that you need to price into any scheme. Sometimes you'll price a contingency in and you won't necessarily have to dip into it. That's extremely rare, I would suggest. But it's about having the experience and the knowledge about the risks associated and pricing that contingency in. But it's becoming more and more challenging, to be honest, from a construction and main contracting point of view, because there are so many clients now that they just drive the price down, and all you're doing by driving the price down is adding risk to the project. Even the big contractors struggle with that. They're competing against each other to win the work. Quite often they'll get the price driven down so much they don't have sufficient contingency in. Some of these unforeseen circumstances will arise, and ultimately it ends up being the client's problem one way or another. Either the contractor can't can't manage it. They can't carry out the project within the budget. They might go under as a result of it, or the project gets delayed. You know, there's all sorts of different things, and ultimately you might think that you're getting a better deal by driving the price down from the client's point of view and getting a lower number from the contractor. But ultimately, my belief is you're just creating yourself a problem for the future. But yeah, so it's about understanding the risks associated with the project. And pricing and contingency accordingly. You know, there's different scales. I mean, I was involved in a project where the contractor decided not to take a ground investigation study out, and it was a big project. It was like a £20 million project, and they ended up finding asbestos in the ground, which they took the risk on. And they ended up, that project cost them £1.2 million to deliver, as in they lost £1.2 million on a £20 million scheme to deliver it. So yeah, I'd say if you're thinking of going into development, then it's a different ball game to the sort of thing that Tom and Ollie do at the moment, and you need to make sure you've got someone in your team that knows what the risks are and can price accordingly.
Absolutely. I mean, if I just pick up, thanks, David. If I just pick up again back to, this is the key, you know, shiny object, shiny penny syndrome. You know, it's so easy to learn all these different strategies, you know, using the word progressive again, because David's dad is very well known, I believe, in there, and very good. I've not actually met David's dad. I've heard a lot of good stuff about David's dad. As I say, the only BS that I've got is when people tell us no money down. It's like, how and where? Because I'll go and have them all, please. Thank you very much. If there's no money down. But generally, that's a BS, and it doesn't matter who's saying that, whether it's coming out of me, progressive, somebody else. It just isn't true. But what I am saying is, you know, start small, think big, scale fast on the personal level. You know, the things that Ollie and Tom are working on from buy, refurbish, refinance. Again, you think about it, the risk compared to that 20 million. Well, one is I don't think we wouldn't be able to do it even if we had one without collaborating with some amazing people that can deliver those type of projects. But look at the risks that David's just pointed out there, in terms of that cost and the risk. I had a 24 house development. The risk was pretty big, but we were mitigating it left, right, and centre. But nobody wanted to squeeze the eyeballs. We have a QS. Nobody wanted to squeeze the eyeballs out of anybody around it, because if we did, what would we be looking at the end, you know, product? And really, realistically, don't try and fudge your Excel spreadsheets to make it work. But start small, you know, single lets, beautifully formed, is the way I personally started, and I recommend doing it. It's served me very well. Got a question though here, Ollie, regarding HMOs here, and refurbing. What is the view of converting a 3-bed into a 4-bed to become a HMO for social housing? Mainly the downside regarding bridging finance to recycle the money out. What's your view on that?
I don't really get involved in HMOs too much. I have done a couple for clients, particularly for social housing. If I was doing it, it would be for professionals, just because I think there may be some maintenance issues there, unless you have it so that there's no maintenance because the social housing are looking after it for you. So I can't really answer that question. I don't know exactly what you're trying to say, really. The downside recycling and bridging finance. Yeah, I'm not sure. So maybe if Basil could add a little bit more to that, and I can try and answer it.
Yeah, I think what you're going to, you know, the thing with social housing is you're going to, you know, the upsides, and I can tell you again, we can do one on, you know, whether it's in here, it's still, I guess, buy, refurbish, refinance. It's just not single let. You know, it's obviously into a niche of a niche. There's some unbelievable people doing it around, you know, whether you would call it HMOs or mini-mos, or whether you call them blocks of apartment blocks to the homeless. I know a great guy. I think he was listening on Facebook. I don't think he's actually in here at this moment. I've turned off Facebook, by the way, everybody, just so you're aware. I do believe that, again, just picking up just quickly on my marketing thing over there, I put this into Facebook for Tom to build more traction and more awareness, and I'm a marketeer by background. And what I want to do is make sure that all the content doesn't always end up out there in the free world for Tom, helping him with what he's trying to achieve with this, because basically it's great to have it in Facebook to a degree, but look, you guys are asking the specific questions. Loyalty for tuning in Zoom should be rewarded, in my view, for those that took action to get out of bed, and not meaning when you start at 10, maybe you don't get out of bed until, and maybe you're watching this or tuned in bed. But what I'm saying is you got out of bed to take action, and there's a lot of people who don't, and they just want to pick up recordings. I did a thing on Facebook Live about that this morning on my Start PMA. You know, tune in, get on there on time, you know, and really take action, because otherwise, I guarantee, if you're just listening to it in history, you won't pay anywhere near the attention you are when you've, again, made the action, you've made the time, you've made an effective financial commitment with your time commitment to be here. Going back to answer that, I just think it's a niche of a niche. And so you've got to go and find that financing out, not just the bridging. You've got to follow the finance all the way through to the refinance, because as you work into that sector, there is less and less people willing to lend. I hadn't even thought about it, but the timeout gentleman that basically big issue, can't remember his name now, but he has a development funding business which will help fund these type of things if you've got the right business and right acumen, because he's obviously helping people get homeless off the streets and off. So it's not as easy as it is if you're going for students or professionals. What are we? Next question down here. I can vouch for Ollie. Oh, somebody's vouching for Ollie. I can vouch for him too. 3, 4. Have you met him, David? 5. No, I'm joking. I think he does exist. I have seen him in the glass plate, called a laptop recently. I met them last year. So again, people giving testimonies, great testimonies to you guys. So that's Ollie and Tom. Again, I can give you testimony to those guys. David's just said he's doing stuff with them. What are we looking down here? Have you seen any other? What target percentage the value you give before? I can't see. Get closer. I can't see. Before deal at the amount of achieved the mortgage. What's your target percentage, i.e., the value you give before deal and the amount achieved at the mortgage? Are your clients? Do you get that?
Is that regarding the ROCE? Is that the 20% potentially? I can answer the next 2 questions. Are your clients mortgaging within 6 months?
Oh, you're heading off, are you, Bernard? Okay, I thought. Or do you want to ask a question? You're off. Thank you. All right, thanks, Bernard. Take care. Have a good one. Well, just talk us through quickly your against that type of question, and unless Gary wants to come on and qualify it.
Yeah, so we target 20% return on capital employed. Again, from what Doug said previously, we don't look at the money left in, although it is usually between 10 to 15 because of the values we're going for. We purely look at the return on the capital employed, and that's because that's the true return you're getting on your money, and it differs as to how big the deal is. So that's what we go for. Are your clients mortgaging within 6 months or after? It depends. So the answer to that is at 6 months of ownership, you basically have the whole of the market to look through. So there will be better deals. If it's under 6 months, there are still options, but there are a lot less. So the reality is you might not get as good a deal. So it's kind of up to you and what you're trying to do there, whether you want a better deal or if you want your money back quicker. And then we've also got what's been the biggest issue or problem deal, what happened, what did you learn? We haven't really had any big problems so far, touch wood. I guess the main issues that you get in property investing are probably builders, I would say. And we've been through a lot of different build teams. In the early days, when you first take on build teams, they can be a nightmare. If they're the kind of people that are used to just fitting a kitchen and you now want them to do a whole project for you in 8 weeks, it's going to be very hit and miss as to whether you get a good one or not. But then once you start to build up traction, or you might just find a good one, but once you tend to build up traction, you can get a more professional team in. You're supplying them constant work, so they've got loyalty to you. They're hopefully not going to run off. They're hopefully going to stick to budget. So I think that's probably the biggest thing of learning is just building those teams, you know, trusting people, but not always taking what they say as gospel, and recommendations as well for working with people is a big thing.
Brilliant. Yep, muted. Brilliant. I was just commenting on a great friend of mine that I've known since I was 16 that's sitting in a super yacht. If you can see him, if you speak, Scott, unmute yourself.
It's very hot here. Sorry, I'm working hard as well, so I'm not watching the screen, but I am listening intently. So yeah, but I've got a day job that I have to do as well, and I've got messages. You are?
Are you the cleaner of the super yacht, or is it yours? Are you the janitor?
No, this is mine, mate. Yeah, I bought it last week, but I've left the other one in Cairns. So yeah, I'm actually in the Bahamas at the moment.
Nice one. Can you don't answer this right now because they'll all come running after you for money. Can you lend me some money though tomorrow?
I've got it all invested, I'm afraid. Yeah, you've got it.
Good man. I'll let you go back to your super yacht team.
Yeah. Great call, by the way.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott. I just thought that was fun. I love the way that Zoom allows you to pick up. And I'm not saying that that's not his super yacht, but I just thought you can pick your own backgrounds. And this is real, by the way. This is a canvas. Let's pick up on the next point. I have to shoot off from here. I know we said 10 to 11, so I appreciate everybody sticking around. That shows us there's more content. Equally, I put in the Facebook group where I put the live. Go back to Tom. If you want more of this, ask Tom for more of this, and Tom will work with you guys, putting more of these on, especially in lockdown. But, you know, swap shop, fireside chats have got to be some of the greatest ways. You know, again, open up mics, you know, name and shame people in a really positive way, like I just did with Tom there, with Scott there in his super yacht. But let's have a couple more questions. I know there's quite a bit more down here, but now people have one from Peter Wood here. How are you finding good deals? It seems that if something is actually on the market, you cannot get a B&B deal.
Oh yeah, okay. This is quite a popular question, really. A lot of people go around saying that only off-market deals are a deal. But then there's usually, when you find an off-market deal, it's not actually off-market because there's about 10 sources trying to run around and sell a deal. So it's a little bit of a difficult one. But basically, it doesn't really matter how you found it as long as the figures stack up. And I get what you're saying there, Peter. I mean, if it's on the market for an amount, and you're picking up for that amount, yes, of course, it's not below market value. However, if you've secured it for lower than that amount, then yeah, it can be below market value. But I think to answer that question, if it's on the market and you're buying it for that amount, then no, it's not. But also another big thing to kind of debunk: buy, refurbish, refinance doesn't have to be below market value. You can simply add value. So if you're buying a property where you can add a load of value so that you can recycle your cash, you can do it that way too. Finding 25% below market values, below market value deals, running around trying to find those all the time, you're not going to get yourself a lot of good, really. You need to kind of meet in the middle where you're getting a discount and you're adding value, and that's how we successfully do it.
Muted. Yep, absolutely. You know, adding value, looking at the picture, we said, what's your plan? What is the person you're borrowing the money from or working with? Portfolio building. Again, Scott's asking here, Scott Thomas asking here in his super yacht, do you ever buy through auction?
Yes. David's doing one now, aren't you, David?
Yeah, we've just well, it's going through at the moment, so we've agreed the sale and paid their extortionate auction fees. and seeing how it goes.
Yeah. So with auctions, so what else you said here? Do you always buy with cash for the initial purchase? So you basically need to make sure that your finance is there, and I would say that cash is the best route, but it's not the only route, and it's mainly just making sure that your finance is definitely going to be there. So you can also do it with bridging as well, but you need to make sure it's lined up. What I'd usually say to people is that if you are taking the bridging route, have the backup of cash, because if you get to 28 days and your bridging falls through for whatever reason, then you are going to be very stuck. So that's what I would recommend. Some people do it with a mortgage as well, but I think that's very risky in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, what you're pointing out there, Tom, is somebody was talking to me about this the other day. He's a very professional property investor, and they actually asked me, do you think, therefore, because of this or that, do you think I should have multiple funding options? My view is, if you're building a business, you need multiple funding options. You know, I'm massively, you know this, Scott, I massively have spent years building my brand, my reputation, but also my knowledge, my experience, my mentoring, my, you know, for giving time to people and helping, some paid, some unpaid, some this, some that. You know, it's not one size fits all either in terms of everything that one does. You may have one size fits all, but we're just understanding this is not one way, one size. What I'm saying is that you need, you know, if you have a plan and your plan is to buy X amount of properties, or and in particular make X amount of money, cash flow capital off of them, you need to look at multiple streams of where you can fund that. So, you know, for me, SAS pension people have lots of money. They're individual people, or collect small groups of collection of people. And what they do is they take control of their pension. They want to lend and borrow their money, not just lending it to me or to you. They want to borrow their own money to use it, etc. So they become an alternative, if you like, the bridge. But they're real human beings. They're not nothing against the bridge company, other than they're a monster of a machine usually, or they're backed by some wealthy people. And you know, right now they are changing their criteria. We had Octopus; they're $1 billion under management. They squeezed us down on the time of refinancing, coming out of a development we'd finished. So we had to go with them, otherwise the fees were going to be extortionate. Out of that, we went with them, but they only gave us 2 weeks, and this is at December. So we had made a decision, and then 4 months later, they haven't basically, and I know this isn't directly at auction, but they hadn't basically closed it out. They've now pulled the product, but they've given us 3 months to leave them. So what that's telling me is you need to always have multiple ways to fund. You know, we can refinance this onto a buy-to-let. We can we could sell. We could sell it at auction. You know, but you know, what I'm discussing and what I'm trying to say is, you go into something, you've got to know how you're getting out of it. So you're going into the auction to bid on an auction price property. You've got to be able to close that deal out. I know somebody went in with, like you say, some very person I know very, very well, went in, offered, got the price, won the bid, and then basically went back to the mortgage company, because it was, bridging company, and the bridging company sent round their no, it wasn't actually, it was some hybrid. Again, you know, what's the complexities in a hybrid, i.e. mortgage to bridge to let, etc. Anyway, the valuation was downvalued, and this isn't this market, this was 6 months ago. The down valuation meant that the lender would not lend, full stop. You couldn't put the extra 100 grand in, or 10 grand. It was just, no, thank you, it doesn't stack. The exposure to risk, because the market said this, the lender said this, the surveyor said this, right or wrong, you're very unlikely to get that lifted. My brother-in-law's a surveyor. When he puts his mark in and tells you what that commercial valuation, or that residential valuation rather is, residential surveyor, you know, that's indelible, you know, pretty much for 6 months. It's in there for 3, because, you know, if the market's not gone very far, why would one surveyor go against another surveyor? It's their indemnity insurance at the end of the day, and they're all told to make sure they work commercial with inside parameters, meaning the width. So that went down at auction. Got at auction, downvalued, wouldn't get lent. So the guy had to run around, and because he's got good branding, good connections, good wealth, good people around him, he was able to raise all the money privately. But I'm sure he gave away, you know, maybe a few more percentage points, especially if it got closer and closer to the wire, you know. But it's an amazing deal. It's built out extremely quickly. Sold part of the properties. It was a refurb one and a double. I think it's to turn it into 2 more properties. So it's a semi, if you like, in a good area, and even sold one of those pretty quickly at the price that or above the price that he predicted in the first place. But just because the surveyor downvalued it, well, you can't get upset with that surveyor. The surveyor's only doing their job. You might feel emotional about it, but it's your business. You need to take control of your business. Like I said, taking control of your mind, you know. So from that, let's have one more question, if that's all right. Still a few people asking stuff here. So I'm gonna, if I missed any in the middle, I'm gonna whiz to the bottom, just a bit like, and I'm gonna apologise. But again, remember your own questions, and we'll come back and ask more of them. Ask them in the Facebook group and get them answered in the Facebook group. Build that community is my recommendation. Still, if I'm leaving the 10K, coming back, okay, going to, I'm a builder. Adam, last question. I'm a builder myself and I can vouch, okay, this might be, it's a nightmare to get professionals to do the right thing. So that's more of a statement. You know, hang around, test people is what you want to do, find good contacts. What percentage of your deals achieve the target valuation? Sorry, mistyped.
Yeah, that was Gary's question from earlier that he mistyped.
Okay.
I don't know the exact percentage off the top of my head, but it is pretty good, to be fair. We haven't had any that have come back seriously downvalued. Some come back higher, some come back slightly less. It's very, very difficult to get it spot on. I don't think anyone can get it spot on all the time. But again, going back to my experience of seeing lots and lots of valuations and how mortgage lenders value remortgages, that's what I base it on. I just follow their model, and that's how I managed to get it so close. So I don't know the exact percentage, but we are pretty spot on with that.
So if I can just pick up on that again, just quickly, you know, surround yourself again with good suppliers, good people. Like you just said there, in the end, you know, Tom, you know, should be able to give you his up, how many above, how many below, and how many in the middle. You know, again, doing your due diligence if you're working with somebody. But equally, what you can't forecast is where the market, you know, truthfully is going in this current climate because of the coronavirus. But normally, you have a pattern, and you know, if you've got access to Rightmove Plus, if you've got access to that via estate agents, they have it. You have access to it if you have contacts that are surveyors. QS people, quantity surveyors, have access to another system, you know, fairly similarly on, I don't know whether David has used this, but you've got, I was going to say Land Insight, which is telling you the valuations in there. Have you ever used Land Insight, David?
Only a trial version. I do use Nimbus maps every now and again, which is very similar as well.
You know, so my point therefore, even just asking David that question there and then, you know, now he goes, oh, I've got Nimbus map. If I needed to double check something, I know somebody that might, you know, he's not there as a surveyor. And if you know, I'm sure if you pester him and send him, you know, hundreds of messages straight after this to give you some valuations, he's going to be going, what's in it for me? You know, what's the purpose? And that's not my job. But what I'm saying is build relationships. So yeah, I've got unfair competitive advantage because I've got a surveyor in the family, and I can pull therefore the past, the present, you know, and I can try and forecast the future. Ollie and Tom have created an amazing value add. You know, it's one of the things that we looked at beginning of this year, wasn't it, Ollie? Sorry, Tom, when we were looking at, you know, what's going on, but more to make an investment strategy. But for the guys, for Tom, you know, Tom, where do you want your properties to buy for yourself and retain and keep? You know, do you want them there or there or there or there? You know, and therefore to understand. And so by pulling that data on the 18-year property cycle in effect, you know, it goes back in Rightmove to 2000 roughly, I believe, but that was a mid-market wobble. So, you know, you can build an investment map, can't you? You can look at basically, now, most of you are going to go, well, I don't have access to Rightmove Plus. In this group, there's still 22 of us in here now. In the Facebook group, there's a few hundred people, okay? Now, I'm not professing that I know anything about what license agreement you could buy and whether you'll be breaking that rule and Rightmove and blah, blah, blah. But I'm sure, you know, somebody could group together, rent, Lisa, take the Rightmove Plus and start using it together. Somebody could actually be charging 50 quid, 100 quid. I was talking to my brother-in-law about doing this and showing my nephew, who's a young entrepreneur, how he can make himself and how he could delegate it to his mates at college, and they could all get 20 quid an hour instead of 10 quid an hour working in Tesco's, or it's less than that, isn't it? 8 quid or whatever it is they get. But do you see what I mean? Think laterally about answering some of these questions and how you could collaborate, because the actual numbers, okay, say coronavirus, are we going to drop 10, 20, 30, 40, 50? Are we actually going to have 0? Are we going up 10? I believe we were going up 10. And it was showing all the signs. January and February did the most amount of trades. And I asked my brother-in-law, the viewings the day after we had Boris Johnson in for 10 years, Tories, they just can't, they can only bugger it up so badly that there's no alternative party at the moment anyway. There's no alternative choice. And I don't think they're going to rebuild themselves to be a vote winner in for whatever it is, 4 or 5 years' time. So my point is, you've got 10 years of Boris Johnson, and that gave us a Boris bounce. And that gave viewings confidence. Why? Because people have put their lives on hold. They haven't moved homes. We're talking about basically money. We're talking about assets. We're talking about it as a business. Most people, 99.9% of the population, buy a home to live in, buy a flat to live in. Okay, so think about it. They have pent up demand for the last 3 years because they couldn't move home, because they didn't know, because of the Daily Mail and the Sun and all the newspapers. It became scary for them. So what I'm saying to you is, if you understand what was happening in the past, and you can look at what happened in 2008, 9, 10, and you can take some spot checks in postcodes and in streets of 3-bed, 2-bed, 3-bed houses, depending on what you're going after. HMOs, the stock that you want for the reason that you want it against your plan. If you look at that, and if you're buying for the next 5 years, the next 10 years, if you're buying for legacy to hand on to your children, does it actually matter if you're getting it BMV or adding value because you've designed it and you can raise the money at the right price? Of course, everybody wants a deal. Everybody wants a steal. They want the sale of the century. They want that magic, diamond in the rough. And you'll pick them if you build enough portfolio. They will come out. But right now, in my view, you're basically got to build a long-term plan. I mean, this is what Tom and myself have been talking about. Is it right to do this or that? It's right to have the knowledge, especially in the lockdown, and then basically come out of this and grow strong and well would be what I would do. Want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I think that's well covered. I mean, a great thing about really knowing your area, and I think that goes back to it, is you need to really understand it. You need to look at what's happened in the market. And it's one of the key things to property investing for me. Either invest where or work with someone who knows somewhere. And that's what we give to a lot of people, because even locally to them, they're not in the market all the time. They haven't had the time to look at what's happened in the market. They don't have those reports. So they come to us to work with us for that reason. But it's such a big thing. It really is. Just understanding where the market's going, what it's done in the past, and it gives you a good indication. But again, if you're holding long term, if you're adding value, that's always going to be the strategy that's going to weather most storms.
Brilliant. Well, look, massive thank you to Tom for pulling this together in the first place. Massive thank you for David and the others that I asked to unmic and give us some extra value. In future, if you've got some questions, obviously ask. If you've got some added value and you want to, chip in, please. My view would be, please do. The more we chip in, the more we raise our own brand and our profile. We get our questions answered. So, look, massive thank you for everybody who took action. I know we've given you an hour and a half, or you can say we overran by half an hour, depending on which way you want to look at it. Half class full, half class empty. But I appreciate everybody's time today massively. Go forth, have fun, massive opportunities out there. And I'll see you on Scott Thomas's super yacht very soon at a harbour near you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Recording, and then he can choose how to use the recording. But mostly on Facebook anyway. So take care, guys and girls. See you all very soon.